Hi, this is Melissa Negrin-Wiener, elder law and estate planning attorney with Genzer Dubau, Genzer and Kona. Our offices are located in Melville. You can reach me at 631-390-5000. And I have a guest on the show today, Elder Law Matters, Frank Melia, certified mortgage planner with Quantic Bank. His office is also located in Melville, and he can be reached at 888-954-7463. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Nice to see you, Melissa.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Quantic Bank is a federal chartered bank based in Astoria, Queens. I'm the manager of the lending division in Melville, and we provide all types of mortgage services throughout the United States. We're a federal bank, so we're all 50 states. But locally, we help people from Montauk to Manhattan with purchases, refinances, and one of the more popular products now is the FHA reverse mortgage.
Okay, and as an elder law attorney, Frank and I do a lot of business together, and we have clients who want to remain in their home and perhaps don't have the income they've outlived their savings, and they want to stay home and they need money to pay their bills. Can you tell the listeners how it all works?
The FHA reverse mortgage program, and FHA stands for Federal Housing Authority, first came into play back in the 80s. President Reagan put it into as a loan program, basically offered through the federal government. But it really didn't become popular, I'd say, for about 10, 15 years. I first did a reverse mortgage back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But, fast forward to today, and there's radio shows, there's TV commercials. To summarize for your listeners, it's a refinance or a purchase. So you can purchase a home with a reverse mortgage, but the most popular method is to refinance your existing property, pay off your existing mortgage, and free up cash flow, like you said, to pay bills and to cover healthcare expenses and cover different expenses. To qualify for this program, the owners of the property, or at least one of the owners, has to be age 62 or older. They have to occupy the premises as their primary residence. A lot of people call us regarding investment properties and vacation homes. Those do not qualify, so you have to live in the property. Property type could be anywhere from a one-family to a four-family property, as well as condominiums. If it is a condominium, we do have to check if it's FHA approved. And just so your listeners know, if it's not FHA approved, we can get them approved. We do that as a service. Co-ops. We do get a lot of calls on co-ops, more in Manhattan than maybe on Long Island.
Right.
And right now at the present time, there's no options for co-ops. It's just the way the structure is on a co-op. There's 3 different ways that you can receive money from the reverse mortgage program. The most popular is a line of credit. Basically, if there's any liens on the property, first mortgage or a home equity line of credit, that has to be paid off. Whatever the remaining balance is can either be taken as a lump sum, can be taken as monthly income, or can be taken as a line of credit where you can call the lender and request the proceeds that you need.
So if you have a house that appraises for $500,000 and you have a $100,000 mortgage on the property, once you pay that mortgage off, do you now have a pool of money, a line of credit of the full value of the house, $500,000?
Not the full amount.
Okay.
It's an equation, and it's calculated by the age of the borrowers. We would take the younger age if there's, let's say, a husband and a wife. So it's the age of the youngest borrower that's living in the property, and the property value, like you said, $500,000. Like I said, you need to be 62 or older to qualify. So a 62-year-old gets about 50% of that market value.
Okay. And
it maxes out at 75% of the market value once you hit age 90 or older. So you're basically going to get between 50 to 75%. So if the house was $500,000, let's just, for argument's sake, say they're going to get about $250,000, $300,000. You would pay off that existing mortgage, and then that rest of that pool of money, like you said, would be available to the homeowners.
And like you said, that could be a monthly income right? Or that could be basically just an account that's there. You can call and ask for money or take a lump sum.
Correct.
Okay. And doing what I do as an elder law attorney, those age ranges that you gave, that 62 to 90 year olds, those are the people who come into my office to try to protect their property. So a lot of times we're putting houses into irrevocable trusts to protect the house for Medicaid purposes, and then things don't necessarily go the way that everybody thought they were going to go, or whatever the case may be, and now mom or dad's living in that home and they need to take a reverse mortgage. I will tell you, probably 100% of the people who walk into my office will say to me right off the bat, we can't do a reverse mortgage because the house is in an irrevocable trust. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, I know. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
It's a great question. About 7 or 8 years ago, we were getting a lot of inquiries as well with trusts. And we spoke to a lot of different individuals at HUD and through FHA. Fast forward now to 2016, we are one of the local lenders that can provide. I can't speak for other banks. Most banks don't want to offer this program inside a trust. We do offer it, and we could look at, I personally review the trusts, so it's a simple review, just like we've done with you and your firm. We can look at either a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. There has to be certain language in the trust that allows, lending and allows the people to take out a mortgage. Nothing changes the way I described the program previously. It's the same program. It's offered. There's a little different options. Most people that have a property inside a trust have done some planning with an elder care attorney like yourself, and they may not need to take, or they might not want to take, monthly income because of some of the planning that you've done.
Right.
So when we've done this product in an irrevocable trust, the line of credit option is the best option because that'll give access if the trustees need the income or need the money. But most importantly, we're not going to, the proceeds more or less from our loan are not going to go to the individuals that set up the trust. In most cases, it's the parents.
Right.
It's going to go to the trustees, so it doesn't affect any of the planning that they've done.
Right, so it becomes an asset of the trust.
Correct.
Right.
And we structure it a certain way through our bank. So we see like a 95% approval ratio, more or less, on the trust that we see.
Right.
And there have been some certain cases where trusts need to be tweaked a little. Maybe a sentence needs to be added, or maybe some verbiage in the trust needs to be changed a little bit. And then we would go to the attorney and, give the recommendations. And in most cases, it's nothing that's changing the trust. It's just allowing us to put the mortgage on the property.
The language of the trust that's so important to us as elder law and estate planning attorneys is the language that says that the donor, the person setting up the trust, doesn't have access to principal. So that is not something that would have to be tweaked, right?
No. For lending purposes, we don't consider proceeds from a mortgage to be principal. We consider it to be income. And that works well with certain verbiage in most of the irrevocable trusts. So we are able to approve, like I said, most properties that are held in irrevocable trusts. Okay.
And how many would you say you do a month, the reverse mortgages?
We're a national lender, and like I said, I work in the Melville office. So locally, we probably help 10 to 15 families a month.
Wow.
We also have an office down in Florida and an office in Indianapolis, Indiana. So total as a bank, we probably help about 50 to 60 families each month throughout the United States.
Wow. I can imagine it's going to be more and more because people are outliving their money and they need to access the equity in their home.
It's funny you say that because I was having a conversation the other day with somebody, and I'm nearing 50 years of age. So we were talking about how, maybe 30 years ago when we were planning our families, you were planning to raise your children, maybe put them through college, but no one really said to you, and you might have to care for your elderly parents, or you might have to care for the aging population. If we would have been told that years ago, we would look at it differently because, I agree with you 100%. I've lived my whole life on Long Island. I just so you know, we did a reverse mortgage for a woman last month that was 103.
Right.
30 years ago, that would have been unheard of, because the average life expectancy was 80, 85. And, some people, unfortunately, there's things that affect their lifestyle, or they may not have planned to live as long as people are living. So yeah, with the demographics on Long Island and the way people are living longer, we'll see more and more people, inquiring usually about these programs.
Okay. This is Melissa Negrin, elder law and estate planning attorney with Genzer Dubow, Genzer & Kona, and we'll be back with our guest, Frank Milia of Quonic Bank, after the break. Welcome back. This is Melissa Negrin-Wiener from Genzer Dubow, Genzer & Kona. I'm an elder law and estate planning attorney. Offices are located in Melville, New York. I can be reached at 631-390-5000 or at my website, genserlaw.com. And the guest on the show today is Frank Milia. He's a certified mortgage planner with Quonic Bank. His office also located in Melville, and he can be reached at 888-954-7463. Frank, we were talking before the break mostly about reverse mortgages, being that I'm an elder law and estate planning attorney. That's most of the business that we do together. I feel like we could have called the show like the myths of reverse mortgages, because one of the other things that I hear about all the time when clients come in right away is, well, that's too much money. I can't. It costs too much. The closing costs are too expensive. And I know we've spoken about it over the years that isn't really true. Maybe anymore. Maybe it was in the beginning, but I'm not sure. How does that work?
The program has evolved dramatically in the last 10 years, I'd say. About 8 years ago, it was a very expensive product. The way it was structured is, and so it's not the amount that you borrow, it's the home value. So someone may come in and need a reverse mortgage and they may need $50,000, let's just say. But their home is worth $700,000. The closing costs are based on the value of the home.
Okay.
So the closing costs were at a much higher percentage of what you'd borrow. 8 to 10 years ago, closing costs were $24,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
So it was very difficult speaking to a family that needed $50,000 and they were going to pay $25,000 in closing costs. It just didn't seem logical. But that's the way the program was structured by FHA. Over the past 3 years, they've made a few changes. And what they've done is they've lowered the fees dramatically. And they've given the banks the latitude to lower some of their closing costs. So basically the way it works today, it does depend on the family and how many, the age and the value of the property. But if you're not going to tap into, the best way to do it is an example. Let's say you have a $500,000 house and the family's entitled to $300,000 based on their age. If they're not going to use at the closing 60% of that $300,000, so let's say $180,000, if they're going to need $180,000 or less, the closing costs have been brought down to the $5,000 range.
Wow, okay.
If they're going to tap into more than 60% of the available $300,000, so they need more than $180,000, then the closing costs could be up in the $12,000 to $15,000 range.
Okay.
So it's still less than the original costs, the way it was structured about 10 years ago. And the government has given the option, so it's depending on how much you need. And our bank eliminates, most of our fees, depending upon the situation with the borrower. What I mean by that is, if someone's paying off an existing mortgage, like we talked about earlier, so let's say the house is worth $500,000, they're entitled to $300,000, and they have a $100,000 mortgage. They're below that 60% threshold, so they're going to use less than $180,000. And with our bank, if someone's taking at least $100,000 at the closing to either satisfy a mortgage or request it, we eliminate our bank fee.
Wow.
So that brings the closing cost down a little bit further.
Okay.
There are certain circumstances where we can have no closing costs at all, besides, recording fees and some title fees. So the program today is a much more user-friendly product, and I've heard those words throughout my entire 20-year career, the misconceptions of reverse mortgages.
Right.
A lot of people have heard about it years ago, and they haven't been educated. That's one of my goals, is just to educate people so they know the pros and cons about the program.
And it seems to make sense that you relate the cost of the closing to how much money you need.
Well, it's human nature. I joke. I've talked about this all the time with professionals like yourself and homeowners. Now, don't get me wrong. If you need the money for health care, or if you need the money, some of the biggest things, some of the main reasons why people take out this program is to do home improvements. That's one of the biggest things. Because as we age, we don't have the ability sometimes to, do the work ourselves, and they have to hire contractors. So if it's to do work on a roof or windows, most people are going to, do what they can to get the mortgage.
Right.
And we're still going to minimize their closing costs. But it really depends on what they're looking to do. And you do have to look at the cost to what you're doing it for. But most of the people that come to us and come through, my bank for a reverse mortgage, there's an immediate need.
Right.
Whether it be health care or a home health care aid or home improvements, or really just getting rid of that mortgage. Because if you get rid of your mortgage on your property, you don't have that monthly payment anymore. And, that makes a big difference to a lot of families on Long Island. That can make a difference between being short every month, or at least having some money left at the end of the month.
Sure. You're listening to Elder Law Matters. This is Melissa Negrin-Wiener from Genzer DuBow, Genzer and Kona. Our offices are located in Melville. I can be reached at 631-390-5000 or at genzerlaw.com. And our guest today is Frank Melia, a certified mortgage planner with Quonic Bank, also in Melville. And he can be reached at 888-954-7463. Frank, what can we tell listeners to watch out for? So, I know from my experience with my practice, there are a lot of people out there who say they do reverse mortgages, and whether they can do it in a trust or they can't do it in a trust, we typically find that they can't, which is, one of the really great things about your company. But what do people need to look out for, especially the seniors? We don't want our clients being taken advantage of. We don't want seniors being taken advantage of. What are the things that they should be careful of if they're talking to somebody about a reverse mortgage?
In my opinion, there's two aspects to that. Know who you're working with. I'm 100% referral based, so I usually get referred from someone in the community, whether it be a professional like yourself or a neighbor or someone we've helped in the past. So I mean this on any service. If you're getting a plumber, an electrician, or even banking, try to get a referral from someone that may have worked with someone in the past, so at least they've had some experience. I'm a certified mortgage planning specialist, so I'm on a national website, and you can check my credentials. So maybe someone should check someone's credentials as well, just like you would check a doctor, or maybe someone's license if they're a general contractor, just to feel comfortable with who you're working with. But it's also knowing what you're looking for and what your need is as the borrower or the homeowner. What I mean by that is sometimes people call me up and say, I want to find out about a reverse mortgage, and my first question is, what makes you think it's a good program for you? And people say, I don't know. I heard I should find out about it.
Right.
So if the borrower or the homeowner knows what they're looking for, one key component to the federal reverse mortgage loan program, which is not mandatory on any other loans in this country, is there's mandatory counseling. So the first step a homeowner has to do before they can even engage with a bank or do an application is to sit through a 20-minute counseling session. It's not face-to-face. It could be done over the phone. If your listeners do need a face-to-face, we do have local counselors that can go to their home. And basically the call is just to explain this. So the government is allowing a third party, not the bank, not the mortgage broker, explain it. We do explain it, but then the counselor, which is contracted through the federal government, does a 20-minute phone call with the borrowers and opens up for dialogue and questions.
And this is someone who has no, skin in the game, if you will.
Perfectly said. Yes, they're just contracted through the federal government, and there's two purposes for the call. A, to go over some preliminary numbers that your banker provides you with, the value of the house, how much you're entitled to. But the second most important feature is what you alluded to with the question, is to make sure that no one's trying to take advantage of our seniors. I haven't had any situations in my 20-year career, but they want to know who's on the phone call. They want to know if your family's involved, if your children are involved. There's a lot of unfortunate situations as we age in this country. So the call kind of educates the borrowers and their family members, and anybody can be on the call. And the counselor is also making sure that no one's trying to take advantage of their assets and steal them, more or less.
Well, that's good.
So once you get that counseling certificate, then you could choose a lender to work with, and you could proceed if you choose to.
That's great. Can somebody act as power of attorney and take a reverse mortgage?
Great question. We get that every day, and it's more relevant, as people age.
Right.
And yes, we can use a power of attorney. There are some things that are necessary. The biggest thing is when the power of attorney was executed. If it's been executed very close to the date that maybe a trust was executed, or if it was just executed, we may need some a medical doctor just stating when the diagnosis was, or if there's incompetence. But in a general, to answer the question, yes, we can use a power of attorney in most cases.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much for being on with us today, Frank. This is Frank Melia, Certified Mortgage Planner with Quonic Bank. His office is in Melville, and he can be reached at 888-954-7463. And I'm Melissa Negrin-Wiener, Elder Law and Estate Planning Attorney with Genzer, Dubau, Genzer & Kona. You can reach me at 631-390-5000 or at our website at genzerlaw.com. And you're listening to Elder Law Matters, and you can hear us every Sunday from 4:30 to 5 o'clock.